Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Kim with the Gems Chat Challenge, the Kim's with the Gems channel. I am your girl, Kim, aka Kim with the Gems. I always forget to introduce myself, and since we have a special guest tonight, I figured I'd get that out the way. On this channel, we talk all things wellness, travel, and finance. And with everything going on in the world today, we are hyper focused on staying ready. We are hyper focused on making sure that we dot our I's, cross our T's, do our research, and know and truly understand what is happening when things happen. And so, part of tonight's conversation, oh my goodness, could it be more timely? Tonight's conversation is about DEI being done, right? DEI is done, but now what? Like, what are we going to do? And so, I couldn't, think of a better person to come in and talk about the area of DEI, especially with the wealth of knowledge she has, the license and certifications that she has, but also the experiences that she's having now in the rooms that we are not in, speaking to people that we don't get to speak to, and really break down what DEI is, where it's going, how can we prepare ourselves, and what should we do, right? What should we do now? Because over here, we all know we about that action, right? We are about that action. So I'm gonna say hi to a few people, let a couple more people get in before we bring our guest of honor up and I do a formal introduction. And if you could go ahead, if you're already in here, you know what to do. Hit that like button. If you hit the like button, you know, the algorithm's going to do what it needs to do. It's going to find people that are similar to you, let them know that we're live, and hopefully they'll be able to catch us before the end of this interview. So, hey, LJ, good to see you. Ella Shiva, good to see you. Welcome back. She's here from Jordan. Oh my gosh, welcome. Hey, Moni, good to see you. Hope you got my email. I responded. Hey, Crystal Flame. See, these are the flawless members that are making sure that they are in the building early. you got to pick your seat. I love it. Hey, Crystal. Hey, WM. Good to see you back. What's up, the savvy African entrepreneur and investor? Good evening. Hey, Antoinette, my HU sister. Good to see you. Shafar Maid. I think that's what it says. From Homewood, Illinois. Your prayers for everyone affected by yes. Listen, I have flown out of that airport more times than I could count, being a student at Howard University. And I even talked about it on this channel. There was a time where the new person in charge of this country had an airline. And for students, you could fly round trip for like $50 from DC to New York. And so I have not only spent so much time at that airport, I spent a lot of time on his planes coming back and forth, especially freshman year before I got my car. Hi, Cynthia. Welcome. So tonight we have subscribers only mode for the questions. If you're in here and you want to ask a question, you're just going to have to wait because we don't have time for, any other stuff, right? We don't have time for people that want to come and just be difficult. So hold on tight. In 20 minutes, you'll be able to ask your questions. If you are in here now and you have a question for our guest, I need you to put the QQQ or the question mark in front of your question so that I can see it. Because I know how y'all get sometimes. Y'all literally will start chit-chatting amongst yourselves, which is fine, but it's just harder for me to actually find the questions. And so, hey, ABX girl, good to see you as well. And so what I wanted to do is really, just quickly talk about and of course, StreamYard is going to do what StreamYard is going to do. So if I start to pause, it is my fault. But I did want to come in and just really talk about, is DEI done? Yes, right? Yes, as we know it. Has DEI been demonized by those who have taken control of this country? The answer to that is yes as well. And especially if you watch today's news, oh, which we'll talk about that later on. Andrea is going to share, some of her insights and thoughts about today's news, which is beyond comprehensible. But DEI now is being equated to being dumb, lethal, destructive, and we're not at a good place, right? And so if you or anyone operates from a career standpoint, from a business ownership standpoint, or if you were looking to get into that space, or if your kids are in any type of DEI related programs, what is that going to mean, right? And so I'm excited to be a part of this conversation. There's two things that we can do. We can either sit there and do nothing and chit chat amongst each other and just talk about the news and what that man said today. But that's not what we do over here with the Gym Nation. We're about that action. And even having this conversation tonight is being about that action. You being in the building is being about that action. And so give yourselves a round of applause just for showing up. You can also share this video to someone else, because I promise you there's going to be some real gems being dropped. So I am going to introduce the guest of honor, who is also one of our instructors for the Maximize Assets, Grow Abundance Wealth Accelerator course that starts on February 8th. She is one of the instructors that will be meeting a few times during the 6 weeks course. And she's also someone that I consider just a wealth of knowledge in so many areas. She's also the one who created my Wednesday investing accountability group. And we've been meeting since 2020, and we still meet every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And again, she is someone that I'm so happy to bring to the community, but especially today with all that has happened. Her name is Andrea Henderson. She is an executive talent strategist, amongst other things, like I said, a long-term investor, a trader, and so much more. And we are going to talk to her today about what exactly is DEI? Where are things now? I mean, like right now, as far as the industry is concerned. Where do we expect things to go in the future? And what is that path going to look like? How should we as a community prepare for where things are going? And there's always an opportunity in chaos, in confusion. So we'll take a quick look into some of those opportunities, because she's going to talk more about those in the Maximize Assets, Grow in Abundance course, 6 weeks course. So without further ado, let me just go ahead and bring up our guest of honor, Andrea. Hey, Andrea, welcome. It is so weird. Listen, we've been talking so much this week. It is like, I kind of have to, yes, I kind of have to act like I'm surprised seeing you. So, but again, as I mentioned, Andrea is an executive. Lord Jesus, let me get the words right. I just closed that out. She's an executive talent strategist, and she is someone that understands what's happening now. And I will do a disservice if I try to read her entire bio, which is extensive. So I'm going to turn it over to Andrea to formally introduce herself to you guys. So Andrea.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. Like Kim said, I say that I am an executive talent strategist, but the shorthand for that is headhunter. I'm a partner in a top 6 global executive search firm. I am in the life science, healthcare, diversity, nonprofit CEO and board practice groups. I've pretty much come up through my career through human resources, first in global mobility, compensation, benefits, expatriate management, and then went to business school and have been in sort of talent acquisition, talent management succession planning, executive coaching ever since. I have a bachelor's and master's in international affairs and an MBA. And I'm mentioning that not to, puff up, but just to kind of say, to give you a sense of my perspective and where I'm coming from. Um, I thought I was going to be a diplomat. And right after undergrad, which I was right across the road from Cam at Georgetown, flown in and out of the airport in DC a lot. Spent a lot of time on Howard's campus too. But also, my family's from South Carolina, so I could have flown out of that Greenville Spartanburg airport as well.
Mm.
I digress. Right after undergrad, I went on a project called Operation Crossroads Africa, built a school in the Gambia, 6 hours up the Gambia River, no electricity, no running water. Went back to school because I really wanted a um, HBCU experience, and I went back to Clark Atlanta University right when it was merging, and I was actually the first Miss Graduate student on the Clark Atlanta University homecoming court. Don't Google and do dates. We don't do dates. Um, and then I worked in for a little bit, went back to business school. So the perspective that I'm coming from is I have a lot of experience, lived experience in different arenas. Um, Recently, I've also been really fascinated at the intersection of talent and investing. Like Kim said, we've been trading and talking about long-term investing since 2020. It's probably the second longest commitment I've made in my life next to my son. Every Wednesday for almost 5 years. I can't believe it. And and then for a lot of different reasons, became really interested in the power of angel investing and venture capital investing. And there is a DEI element to that as well. So, we'll talk about it. But
Okay.
that's who I am, and that's where I'm coming from.
Like I said, the perfect voice for us at this moment because of your wealth of knowledge beginning, in your college years all the way up until now. We won't Google the what was it, Miss Graduate? What was the title?
At this grad, Clark Atlanta University.
I won't Google. I'll chat GPT it.
Okay.
No, but again, I think once again, she is the perfect voice to speak on this tonight. And a lot of us, from what I have been seeing across social media, we are so confused about DEI. I mean, there's some of us out here talking about exactly what DEI is to educate the people because there's such misinformation about DEI and that it's just about hiring Black people and Black people getting jobs. And we're seeing, because we've also seen a lot of us be affected. So, like the president of Harvard University, the head of Disney, the head of, is it MSNBC, CNN? Like, we've seen a lot of Black people jobs be affected and eliminated under the guise of DEI. But what I'd like for you to do is just give overview, a macro level explanation of exactly what DEI is for
Yeah.
the audience.
This is a great place to start because having worked in the space and having been in corporate, we are familiar with DNI, DEI, all these acronyms, but everybody isn't. And it's been such big news that it warrants pausing and saying, Let's figure out what this exactly means." So, DEI is diversity, equity, and inclusion. Diversity is differences, right? Typically, when you talk about those differences, you're talking about race, gender, sexual orientation, age, religion, disability status, socioeconomic status, but it goes beyond that. It's any difference. And when you bring difference together, it's diversity. So it's like a melting pot, a mixed salad. It's different. Equity is ensuring fair treatment. And so you might have seen a image of a group of people watching a baseball game over a fence, and they're standing at the fence, and you have like a young child that's short, and then you have taller, maybe older child, and you have an adult, right? So equity is if you all line them up against the fence, they can't all see over the fence. The children aren't going to be able to see. But if you create a step ladder and you give the shortest, youngest child the largest pedestal to stand on, and the middle one a slightly shorter pedestal, then they can all see over the fence. And that's fair. And that's what equity is.
Mhm.
And inclusion is really making sure everybody feels welcomed, valued, and empowered. Um, and so I've heard people say, diversity is being invited to the dance and inclusion is being asked to dance, right? It's not just that you're there, but you are meant to feel welcomed. What it's not is what happened to me and my classmates growing up in our town, um, which we, what do you call it? Diversified. Being one of the first Black families is being going to visit your friend in elementary school and telling them that you have to wait, and being told you have to wait at the back door, or you always have to come in through the front door, or
Mm,
being invited to sleepovers and being the only one who's told you have to bring your own pillowcase.
mm,
That's opposite of inclusion.
mm. Wonderful. I think I love that explanation of, or the comparisons between diversity and inclusion, being invited, diversity being, yes, you're invited to said place, and then inclusion being asked to partake in the activities of whatever's happening in that said place. And so I love, that's a very easy to understand, as I like to say, easily digestible um, definition. And so to follow up with that, there's, besides the actual um, news that we've been hearing about all month long on turbo, right? I want to know if you can share, based on people you're speaking to, the rooms that you're in, where are things now in your area of expertise? Where are things now as it relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion?
So it's a big topic in the news. It seems like there's 5 year cycles. So it was a big topic after George Floyd died, and everybody wanted to do something, and now the pendulum is swinging the other way. So I focus a lot about on diversity in employment in the workplace, but it's much bigger than that, and I want to talk about that. A lot of companies now, federal because of the new administration and the stated beliefs of the new administration, in addition to executive orders, which, by the way, only apply to the federal government, right?
Mhm,
But there was one mention in one of the executive orders to say that the federal entities should also monitor the private sector, which doesn't typically happen. You have an executive order, and that executive order pertains to the population that you um, that you give the executive order to. So that was a little bit odd.
mhm,
That being said, when leaders are reading the tea leaves, many um, boards and companies have said that they are going to either eliminate their DEI programs or significantly reduce them. There's been a lot of buzz about that. But let me just say this: we heard about Target and Auntie Tab told us what she felt about that. We heard about McDonald's, and I have some additional color on that. Um, there are um, several companies in the news that we've heard about. But if you think about the number of companies that there are in the Fortune 500, there's 500 alone, and then you have those that are not in the Fortune 500 and those private companies in the universe of companies. Only 13% of those companies have said that they're going to either eliminate or reduce their DEI programs. 5% said they're going to eliminate, and 8% said they're going to reduce. So, in the grand scheme of things, the majority are not reacting to this. That's the good news. The good news is that of those companies that are re- retracting, we can isolate those and figure out what an action plan is because it's manageable. It's not all. Um, so we have a lot of activism around anti DEI. There's one activist in particular named Robbie Starbuck, who is a social media influencer turned shareholder activist that is going after companies, and companies are getting afraid of the legal ramifications, and some are retreating, but some are standing firm, like Apple, like Costco. So we should applaud those and support those. Um, I want to pause there because I have a lot more to say, but I want to pause to make sure that I'm back.
Okay. No, that's fine. And we've talked about Robbie Starbuck, who was also in the music industry at one time, who is putting pressure on these companies. And it's even, this is not really about the DEI topic, but I consume what's important, and hearing that, Mr. Zuckerberg has now donated 25 additional $1 million because to settle the lawsuit from eliminating the person in charge from the platform those years ago, he now has to contribute $25 million to wherever it's going. Like, I don't even believe anything that they're saying. So just another $25 million in order for these corporations to play. So I do want to ask you right now, it's a limited number of people that have a limited number of companies. You said 5% have eliminated, 8% have reduced their DEI initiatives.
Mhm.
What is your expectation? Because this is only a couple weeks, right? We're only talking. It is only January 30th. So, what do you foresee with the rest of the countries? Not all of them, but what do you foresee as far as industry wide? Do you see more of the companies falling in line with the Robbie Starbucks and Delon Tusk, protocol, or do you see companies staying firm?
Well, what I see is companies trying to protect shareholder value. And if you have a lot of power in the marketplace, like Apple does, you can stand on business and be like, you know what, go kick rocks. We're
Mhm.
going to do what we do. We're good over here, right? If you're Jamie Dimon at JP Morgan, you can say, you know what, kick rocks. Okay, I got this. But there's some other companies that are less secure. There are some other companies that feel like they're vulnerable, they're a target. There's some other companies that just were like, you didn't want to do that anyway, right? So, what I believe is that those companies that have the will, but may be concerned about expensive litigation, they may make it look like, right? I was on a webinar the other day, and the lawyer, he was the former head of the OFCCP. I don't think I'm taking telling tales out of school because he had 30, 40,000 people on the webinar. He flat out said, change the name of your programs. Don't call it DEI anymore. That's the number one thing. Take the target off your back and don't call it DEI. I think a lot of companies are going to do that. And that's probably good advice. It's not we don't care what you call it, right? What we
Okay.
care is the impact it has. I think a lot of companies will do that. I think that the chief diversity officer is going to go probably the way of the head of affirmative action. That role needs to evolve. I've seen people evolve it to become a chief impact officer, something different, broader scope, which is what the DEI leaders have been calling for all along. So it's a good thing. Evolve it, give give it more power, more
Mhm.
scope. That's great. Um, Black folks are not going anywhere. Women are not going anywhere. Latinos are not going anywhere. And there are other, other dimensions of diversity. LGBTQ population is growing. They keep getting more letters and everything like that, and people are becoming more explicit about where they are in that column. So not going anywhere. You're seeing an increasing population of neurodivergence. So all of these folks are not going anywhere. I don't think diversity is going to go anywhere because people want to be embraced. Gen Z, they don't care. They're showing up how they want to show up, and they are forcing people to deal with it. They are
Mhm.
forcing the education system, the government, um, the workplace, employers to deal with it. So somebody's going to have to understand how to integrate people. And then one other thing, I heard that this is the first time that there's something like 6 generations in the workforce.
Wow. Wow.
Yes, because older people are living longer and working longer because they have to.
Have to, yeah.
Younger people are entering the workforce earlier, and values are not always aligned. Work means something very different to a boomer than it does to a Gen Z person.
Mhm.
Um, the
Mm.
relationship between an employer and that employment contract is very different between a boomer. So somebody's going to have to help the organization maximize their return on this investment. So I again think even in the workplace, DEI or whatever it's going to be called is going to evolve. It's not going anywhere.
Okay. And I will say that I do agree that a shake-up needed to happen. And as someone who's worked in the multicultural space the majority of my career, I had issues. My issues with the term DEI were quite different than the current administration. So my issues were they were able to justify not spending in Black and Hispanic spaces because they were spending in Asian, women, LGBTQIA plus spaces. And so if your budget, your DEI budget, diversity, equity, inclusion budget is $10 million, but 13%, 14% of the US population is African American, and maybe at that time it was probably 13 and 12% Hispanic, the pie for both of us would be something like 3% or 4% of that budget that we would have to, split. But they were able to check the DEI box because they were overspending in other more preferred demographics because they said they had higher household incomes and more buying power or whatever. And so, and then when you don't have, even when you do sometimes, but especially when you don't have Black people in charge of making these decisions, or people that have, even I'll say even Hispanic or Latino, when the person making those decisions is another white person or Asian person that doesn't get those markets, it's even more difficult. It's more probable that they will spend other places to avoid spending, where they're not comfortable. And so I personally, that's my little anecdote story about my issues with DEI. But can you talk about that just for a second, about the different areas of DEI and what you've seen, and how companies or talent, not talent, recruiters move in that space?
Yeah, yes. So what we have now an incredible ability to do um micro marketing. I don't know the micro demographics. You're the marketing expert, so you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Micro communities, right?
Mhm.
So you can identify down to like even Zuck when he created this AI persona, created a black female uh lesbian AI bot, right? Targeting a very specific demographic. And the better that you can target, the better you can win. So companies, they can ignore the black. You can say, okay, well, the Asian population spends more. Okay, maybe they do. Maybe they have a higher, maybe they do. But you're going to leave all this black money on the table? Okay, because somebody else is going to come in and get it.
Mm-hmm.
And we have buying power. The banks realize that we have wealth. You know, um, you know, there's so many products and services that if marketed to us to correctly, that we're going to spend and we over index, right? So there are a lot of companies. I wish I had more examples, but my power of recall isn't that good. So I won't even try to hold us up by trying to think about that. But there are a lot of companies that will have realized the power of the demographic. And if you segment well and you market well, you can get that. So I don't think that's going away. And I think as my profession is to help those companies that get it identify people that can help them. Back in the day, if they were trying to enter the continent of Africa, or if they were trying to penetrate the Black community, they would find somebody. I'm gonna paint with a broad brush and use some stereotypes, but they would find somebody who
Mm-hmm.
went to Harvard, let's say, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe grew up near Compton and had a Black friend and went to Africa like I did after, right? And so you have this white guy who says, I am Black adjacent, so let me do it. He's gonna fumble.
Mm-hmm.
You might listen to Eminem, but you don't really know us, right?
Exactly.
Or
Exactly.
you can get, you know, an authentic Howard grad, which is, arguably the Harvard of the HBCUs, um, who understands the demographic, who has lived experience, who's going to help you navigate some of those things that you don't even know that you're, the landmines that you don't even know, and
Mm-hmm.
you're going to win. And it's my job to help my clients understand that and then help them identify these people.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond the workplace, right? So we move beyond representation and just how many Black people do you have, and what ERGs do you, employee resource groups do you have, the Black Googlers or whatever, and making them feel comfortable. We're going to talk about internal promotions. How are people progressing? Okay, so you can hire a bunch of folks, but are they thriving in your organization? Are they being promoted? What does your senior leadership look like? What does your board look like? Okay, now we're going outside of the workplace. How are you taking care of your diverse customers? In healthcare, your patients, right? Healthcare is a space that I know extremely well. So diversity is also making sure that you include, when you are developing a drug, test it on Black people to make sure that we don't react differently, right? One of the things I have a pet peeve about is the pulse oximeters. So when you go to the doctor and they put something on your finger and they text your oxygen level and they test um your all these things with the pulse oximeter, but I'm specifically talking about the oxygen level. Ask your provider if they are aware that that it reads darker skin differently than it reads white skin. Because I bet you 9 times out of 10 they won't know that. They'll say, "Oh, it's
Mm-hmm.
the nail polish." It's not the nail polish. Nail polish might affect it, but darker skin does. And that's a big reason why during the pandemic, so many Black people were dying, because the pulse oximeter would read that our oxygen level was in normal range, but it was a normal range calibrated for a white person, not for a Black person.
Mm-hmm.
So what looked like normal, we were actually in distress.
Yeah. And vice versa, because my post ox, and I did have a doctor tell me it was it was a Black doctor, no, Italian doctor, excuse me, with dark skin. My post ox, I'll never be at 199, 98. Like I'm always between the 94, 97. And I'm like, oh, I'm dying. And he's like, don't ever let anyone think that you need any additional medical care if you're he was like, if you are above, I think he told me like 85 or 87, do not take any additional, action. Because currently, if I was to put a pulse ox on now, I would probably be at like 95, 96. And
And
so,
that's normal for a black
yeah,
person, right?
yeah,
'Cause our range is different. If you go into the bathroom, you put your hands under the water spout to turn on those automatic water spouts, turn on the water. Like you can't get it to turn on.
right.
White girl next to you and say, "Excuse me, can you turn this on for me?" Because they're not calibrated for us. Now, that's not a life and death situation, but what I'm saying is the requirement so the FDA in 2024 has a diversity memo, um, but and it's good business practice, but the requirement to have diversity in clinical trials is also DEI. It's
Hmm.
literally life and death. It's not we're not taking jobs away from a white guy. We're not discriminating against anybody. It's making sure that we're included and our health issues are addressed equitably. It's only been 30 years since it was required that women were included in clinical trials. Before that, it was you could have a drug come out and only test it on men and then say, "Oh, well, if you have a woman, just cut the dose in half."
Hmm.
Whole
Yeah.
different biology. We need to test it on women. We're just not little men.
Right. Right.
So, it's that kind of thinking. And again, for me, you know my story, um, with the mammogram.
Oh, yeah.
So for like, I think the mammogram was invented like 50s, something like that. So for 50, 75 years, we've been squeezing women's boobies between two metal plates as the standard of care to detect breast cancer. If they were squeezing men's nuts between two metal plates, we would have heard about it. They don't do it because the
Right.
men are deciding where the research dollars go,
Hmm.
and they would never allow that for 75 years before they found another option.
Hmm.
That's how you know the women are not in the room.
Right.
How
Right.
many little blue pills commercials or uh, you know, receding hairline creams commercials do we see? Because that's where the research and the money is going. It's not nobody's thinking about, I don't want my boobs swished between two metal plates. Find another way. Find a better solution. This is barbaric. Anyway, I digress. That's called diversity.
Yeah, and there's so many things that popped into my mind, like inventions that I've learned were made by men that are so uncomfortable for women, rather, I don't want to get into the list, but it's definitely critical that you have that type of diversity in a country that is diverse. Now, if you have a country that's all men, then you don't need that. If you have a country that's all women, then you don't need that diversity. But that's not any country on the face of this earth. And so I want everyone, if you have a question, listen, we have a private membership meetup after this, but please don't come in asking me questions that you could ask Andrea while she's here, because I'm not going to answer them. We have the expert here tonight, and the next time you'll be able to ask her questions is during our Maximize Assets, Grow Abundance 6 weeks course. And I know many people in here have signed up for it, but if you're not, now is the time to ask. And that means if you have like a question about what's happening with like the federal layoffs, because I kind of did want to touch on that before we get into how we should prepare. And maybe that's kind of like a tag team, right? So we
Yeah.
actually, that's one question. So I'm going to get into that. But if you, Gym Nation, have any questions, go ahead and ask them now. Don't forget to hit that like button. All of Andrea's contact information is in the description. You can reach out to her on her social media platforms, including YouTube. But I did want to talk about the rollback and these, you know, mandates that have been, and I guess executive orders for what's happening with and let me set it up. I was in another meeting yesterday, and I heard about 6 or 7 Black women talking about they've either been notified that their jobs are being eliminated, or get ready because your jobs will probably be eliminated. So based on what is happening now, if you could talk to that a little bit, and then how should we prepare, like if we are in the workforce or if our children are in the workforce, what can we tell them? How should we prepare based on the current, things that are happening?
Yeah. So it's a little bit of offense and defense. The first and most critical thing that I want to say is that a memorandum informing you that your job has been eliminated and that you will be entitled to certain benefits is not a legal contract. So do not make any decisions based on a memo. And I'm getting this advice from a lawyer. So she said a legally binding severance agreement is never presented in the form of a mass memo. I don't want people to get tricked into giving up benefits based on, because you would think if it's coming from someone in a position of authority that you should trust it. Please don't. Please
Right.
get it in writing and reviewed by an attorney, because you have people here who have been working for the government for decades and have um, entitlements, pensions, and retiree medical, and all of these things that you might actually give up if you don't exit the organization properly.
Yes.
So that's the
Yes.
first thing. Second thing is DOGE is the Department of Government Efficiency, I believe. The platform that the administration ran on is smaller government. They're talking about eliminating the Department of Education. They're talking about eliminating the IRS. They don't want to collect taxes. We're not going to even talk about the merits of it, right? They're talking about eliminating the FDA, the NIH, CDC, eliminating, right? So that means the prospects for federal employment are shrinking.
Hmm.
And in order to secure a private sector role, the process is completely different. So if you've never um, or explored employment in the private sector or are not familiar with that process, please get some coaching because it's very different. Your resume is got to be different, a lot shorter than federal resumes. The process is different, and and you also probably need some coaching around your interview skills. All of the things that I do, but I'm not telling you that because I do these things, because you don't have to work with me, but you have to work with somebody, because it's going to be different, and I would hate to see people out there languishing because for lack of knowledge, put it that way.
And so I know people, so I did put in the comments, do not be bullied into resigning, because there are legal, he's only been in the office for a few days. And as I mentioned yesterday, I think it was, he knows that everything is not going to stick, but he's banking on the people that don't know that everything is not going to stick for him to at least accomplish some of the what he's deeming draining of the swamp. And so that was a gem right there. I forgot to announce that during our excuse me, our maximize assets, grow abundantly wealth creation course, or wealth accelerator course. Andrea will be offering a consultation, a complimentary consultation to a lucky winner or two. We'll see how that works out. And she does different coaching, but if you're in the job market and you're looking for someone to do mock interviews with, to, pick her brain, and more will come out about that. If Andrea, you want to talk about that a little, we can. But I just wanted, before I forget, to bring that up. During the course, we're going to do at least one giveaway based on how it goes, maybe two. But can you talk a little bit about before we get into the last two questions, a little bit of some
Mm.
of what you offer?
Yes. So resume revisions, LinkedIn profiles, and I know some of my people just don't like LinkedIn, but it is so important. It is the professional networking platform. Warren Buffett said your network is your net worth. You
Yes.
have got to build a network. You have got to now you should build the net before you need it. So if you're secure in your role, start building it now. If you're not secure in your role, start networking like the house is on fire
Mhm.
because you're going to need people to pull you through, to put you on the top of the pile, to connect you to the unadvertised opportunities, to hook you up, to introduce you. You you need people to do that, and you're going to have to connect with people and let them know what you want and how they can be helpful. And LinkedIn is an extremely efficient way to make that happen. And not to mention that that's the biggest primary tool that recruiters use to find people. So if you could be you don't have to be applying. I've seen people say, I submitted 200 applications. Well, if you're on LinkedIn and your profile is good, I could be looking for you and you don't even have to submit an application because to be honest with you, 9.7 out of 10 jobs that I work on, I don't post. So that's that. LinkedIn profiles, mock interviews. So I've seen people who have paid, you know, tuition to get their resumes done. And they have also worked a lot on their LinkedIn profiles. But when you talk to them, they can't articulate their value proposition. They take too long to get to the point. They don't connect their skills to the role. And it's not going to work. You need practice. And so, again, it doesn't have to be with me. If you have you can go to your alumni career center. You should practice with somebody skilled in behavioral interviewing. I'm happen to be certified in behavioral interviewing, but don't just practice with your homegrown. Practice with somebody who is a trained behavioral interviewer so that he can give you good feedback. And then I also work with aspiring board members. So I work on board bios, board resumes, and board interviews as well.
And Andrea knows everybody. When I look at my LinkedIn and compare it to Andrea, who I think last I saw you had like over 20,000 followers or something like that, something amazing. But looking at my I'm buffering. Sorry about that. Looking at my network and her network, everybody I know is on her list that she knows as well. And like I said, she's somebody that I think is so key and so important during this time. Andrea also dropped a gem. We have been doing planning for the course, and she dropped a gem for me on me about what she's going to share. Listen, some of y'all are sitting on some assets as far as remote work opportunities in this space. And Andrea is going to share some of those. And it's not just the ones that you have heard about and thought like the tech or the customer service, but creating certain opportunities that I was like, whoa, you can do that living in another country? And she was like, absolutely, because you're not. So anyway, so we're going to share more of that in the during the course. And so I see, listen, I tend to talk too much and we're already at 49 minutes. So I did want to find out, that kind of leads into, the last question before we talk about the events of today. Um, where are some, without sharing that gem, right? Without dropping what you shared with me yet, because I think that yeah, without sharing that one, where are some of the opportunities? We know that chaos and confusion, one of the favorite sayings, and I think the first time I heard it was through what's his name, Tony Robbins, never let a good crisis go to waste. There are
Mhm.
opportunities that are being presented in the space of DE and I. And so can you share a little, maybe one or two things where you see opportunity and how people can maximize their assets in those areas?
Yes, yes. So there are. First, I want to tell you the context, right? So I believe the future of work is not going to be a traditional employer employee. contract. We're moving towards a future where everyone's a free agent and they contract their services, right? So you have a skill and someone engages you for that skill. So the first thing is you have to have a skill. You have to know that you have a skill because many of us have skills and we aren't even aware of it. You have to
Mhm.
know what the monetary value of that skill is. You have to know who is interested in, in that skill. So who your customers are, and then you can make a living off of that. You have to be comfortable with that because so many of us, let's think back, right? Grandma, grandpa, I mean, depending on how old you are, um, they did whatever they did. They hustled. Granny was baking pies, selling dinners at the church. Pop was painting houses, fixing cars, doing whatever and then had somebody babysitting kids. You had people just doing whatever they knew how to do to make money. And they did not rely on somebody telling them, I will give you a job.
Exactly.
Right? And then they wanted better for us. They sent us to school, we went to college, whatever, and we got jobs and we got good jobs. And now we think somebody owes us a job. I worked hard. I did what you told me to do. I played by the rules. Now you have to give me a job. If nobody ever gives you another job in your life, are you going to wither and die? Are you just going to starve? Are you going to turn to dust? You have to figure out what you can do to survive. And you have to tap into that ancestral
I love
you
that.
know, memory. Now, I'm sure you have a very diverse audience, but I'm going to talk to the Black people. We are survivors.
I have a diverse audience, but go ahead.
We are survivors of the Middle Passage. We are the strongest and the luckiest. You know, we made it here. So I have every belief and faith that you can think about what you can do. And if you don't, this is why you need a network. You got to ask somebody because somebody else will be able to tell you what you can do that other people can't do, that somebody would pay for. And keep thinking about that. Keep asking the question. And
Mhm.
let me tell you something, even if you have a job, even if you have a good job, ask the question. Come up with 2 or 3 things that you could do that you could fall back on just in case, you get that tap on the shoulder. Because when
Mhm.
you get tapped on the shoulder, it's kind of hard to think when you're in that position. Okay, so that's the perspective that I'm coming from. What can you do? One, like I said, figure out what you can do that people will pay for. Um, and you can kind of market yourself, consulting, whatever. You can go the fractional route. There are firms that have turned temping, high
Mhm.
level temping, and they call it fractional. So they have fractional executives, all kinds of fractional roles. Um, Third, you can start a business. We are this population, Black women in particular, are the largest group of startup founders in the country. We know how to start a business. Um, or you can buy a business. And before you say, I don't have any money, let me just tell you something. 90 90% of the businesses in this country are private family owned businesses.
Mhm.
51%, let me check my stats. All right. I'm gonna give it to you, and if I have to correct it later, I'll correct it later. 51% of those businesses are owned by boomers. Um, I think some, like, let's say 30% of those, no, I think it's even higher, but a very large percent of those businesses do not have successors. So now think about Joe Johnson. Joe Johnson started a auto repair shop, and he's got two shops. He's got one up the street, then one across town, right? But Joe Johnson's kids went to college and they don't want to take over the family auto shop. What you could do is say, listen, Joe, when you retire, you're going to shut down the business and you won't earn another dime because the business isn't running. Or you could train me to take over your business,
Mhm.
and then I will give you 10% of the profits for the next 10 years or 20 years,
Mhm.
and you'll at least have an annuity. So you don't really buy the business from Joe. You don't have any, you're not giving Joe Johnson any cash, but you're giving him an annuity over time,
Mhm.
right? If you think about the businesses, and I'm being very stereotypical again, catering businesses, uh, hair salons, barber
Yes.
shops,
Yes.
and you might and then you also have some small manufacturing firms. You have some logistics companies. I have a good friend who has a business that she does run all the mail rooms for a very large media company in New York City, and she also does the shuttle buses for the company. So
Mm.
from the employees going from one building to the next building. I'm not going to tell you what her biggest client is, but I will say they have two ears, two bunny ears. Uh,
Uh-oh.
no, no,
Too many
mouse
ears.
ears, mouse ears.
Oh,
Um,
mouse ears. Okay.
yeah, and shuttles all the employees from one building to another and does all the mail. Kids don't want to take over the business. It's a multi-million-dollar business.
Yeah.
So, sometimes they will try to sell it, but a lot of times they won't find buyers. And you have to figure out how you can create a win-win.
Yeah.
That's a hack. More to come on that.
Yeah. No, I totally love your reference to tapping into our ancestral powers because grandma, grandpa, great grandma, great grandpa found a way. They've made a
Yeah.
way out of no way. And so the fact that some of us, I shouldn't say we, there are too many of us that are going to sit and let things happen to us versus preparing. And so that's what this whole, you know, um, marathon has been about. It's, we need to prepare, we need to stay ready because things are going to change. There's no two ways about it, and people are going to be affected. And I mentioned yesterday, and I'm going to call her out again today, in our membership community there are two nurses, and when we're talking they drop so many gems of wisdoms, and they spent time in the ICU and they've seen a whole bunch of things, and I'm challenging them like, listen, if y'all don't create some type of platform to talk about ways, especially with everything that's expected to happen in healthcare, with us pulling out from who, from the cost of medicine more than likely increasing substantially, if you are looking for opportunities and you have a skill set like that, there's in lies your opportunity. You just have to be willing to put in the work. You have to be willing to, you know, offer your services to different communities and come in and talk, for a fee or whatever, or build your own community where you bring people to you. And and that's just one example. And so that's what I consider tapping into the ancestral, spirit. When you know, our ancestors, the doctors weren't coming to the houses when we were having babies or when we were sick, but you found the root doctor, or you found, some other type of person who had that type of knowledge to come in, and that's how they made a living. So I totally appreciate you sharing that. I look forward to you also sharing more gems and tips in our course. And again, you can reach out to Andrea, separately to see if you can book some time with her for any of the areas that she mentioned, from coaching to, mock interviewing and LinkedIn profile coaching. Listen, even Gary V, and I don't know what y'all think of him, but he is a master marketer, talks to this day about the power of LinkedIn community. And so I do agree that LinkedIn is one of because I think, isn't it like the only social network left or something where you still see who likes, whoever you're connected to, you still see what they like and what they share, whereas all the other platforms, you don't know what your friends are doing.
Yeah. Yeah, you can hide some of that, but yes, it's still pretty open, but yes.
Okay, okay. And then the last question, just give us your thoughts about today's, you know, press conference. I hate even talking about it, but because DEI was brought up as the reason why, oh, that horrific accident happened, and I'm gonna call it an accident for now. But can you just share your thoughts of about the press conference? What do you think it means for the space of DEI? Just whatever you comes to your mind about today's press conference. Can you just give us some of your expert opinions about what happened?
Yeah. First, I thought it was ridiculous and completely disconnected from reality because um, right after you eliminate some senior roles at the organization and you lay some people off and you create general anxiety where people really make it difficult to focus on their job, you want to then blame first DEI,
Mhm.
and you're going to talk about a hiring policy where they say that they're welcome people with intellectual disabilities and mental um, challenges.
Yeah. Mhm. I remember he said, yeah.
Are those people flying the plane, doing the air traffic control? If you welcome people with intellectual disabilities, are you telling me that you, President Obama, didn't have the good sense to hire an administrator to know where people could be useful? It's insulting.
It's
And
true.
then for the second one in charge to come in and piggyback on that delusion and then insert race. How do we get from what is in the policy to now to race? So I think a lot of people confuse DEI or equate DEI to Black people.
Mhm.
But when you start to FAFO is when you realize, oh, well, the biggest beneficiaries of DEI policies were white women.
Mhm.
Probably the second bit, and I don't know what order, or like the LGBTQ community, veterans, and things like that. So when you start removing these programs, people are like, oh. But the problem is, as long as you thought it was going to be Black people affected, you were okay with it. Then when the lemon starts squeezing and you start feeling it, you're like, oh, wait a second. So the second thing is the problem that I have with people in general is that they're okay with anything that happens as long as they think that it's going to happen and they not only are they okay with some of these people are okay suffering as long as they think Black people are going to suffer as
Mhm.
well.
Exactly.
So
100%.
I have a problem with that. So your main goal in life, is to make sure that the social hierarchy is maintained. As long as Black people are still beneath you, you are okay doing worse. Make it make sense.
Right.
And the third thing is I'm going to have to get on my people. We're going to have
Please.
to do better. We're going to have to do better because we didn't come through the civil rights movement. I know there's this whole movement of mind your business, and I'm not opposed to that. But Martin Luther King said injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
Mhm.
We cannot be okay with other people suffering as long as it's not us, because one, it's going to be us. We're going to catch the cold when the other folks sneeze. Two, there's so much intersectionality, right? So, you could be Afro Cuban or Afro Latina. So
Yes.
I'm not going to be like, I don't care if you get deported. It's not Black people. There's
Mhm.
Black people all around the world. There are Jewish people that marched with us. Now
Yes.
it gets complicated. All I'm saying is it's easier to divide and conquer.
Uh-huh.
Don't let anybody divide us. We have to have that same outrage for other people. I'm not saying go in the street and march and all this other stuff, But what I'm saying is, it's not right. If it's not right, it's not right. Period. Point. End of. Right. And so there's a lot of people saying, well, I didn't benefit from DEI because I was qualified. No, DEI is much bigger than just jobs and representation, and it's much bigger than Black people. And we need to stop that. It's not affecting me, so I'm going to mind my business. That's no, it's not good.
And listen, you are co-signing everything I have been saying since launching this movement, because the writing was on the wall from day one that they were supposed to target the bad immigrants, illegal aliens in this country, and those are the people that they were supposed to get rid of. Anyone who knew this man, his disdain for Black people, the people he was picking to be his little band, making the band, all felt the same. It was only going to be a matter of time before they started targeting every Black and brown, what he would call S-hole countries. Also, the whole Make America Great Again 1776 is eradicating as much diversity as possible. And so you think that you can't get swooped up. And that's why I've been preaching. Everybody have your passports, have your papers. I don't care if people tell you, oh, that's fear mongering. Fear monger. If you need to fear monger to keep your baby safe and to keep yourself safe, fear monger, because I've heard too many stories of Americans being picked up because they were immigrant adjacent. And these people that they got picking people up, they're not looking at you and saying, oh, she's a Black American and that's a Black Haitian and that's a Black. They're not doing that. And so, yeah, I get on us all the time. So I appreciate the reinforcement, the backup, and all of that. And I know it's been over an hour, so we're going to wrap up. I'm going to just see if there's any questions. I looked real quick. I didn't see any, but I did want to say, remember to go ahead. You can follow Andrea, her social media and her LinkedIn are all in the show notes, the description. Andrea will also be one of our guest professors, not guest professors, she's one of the professors during the Maximize Assets and Grow Abundantly. And part of that asset is finding out your gifts and talents and monetizing those, because we all have them and we're all going to need them. Imagine the opportunities for someone who worked in government for 20 years and may get, that pink slip or whatever. There's an expertise there that they can then parlay into something else. Don't wait to get that. Listen, do not wait to get that pink slip. Start doing the research now. Start, figuring out what that looks like now. And so if you're interested in signing up for the course, the link is in the description. The link is also in the chat. We're going to hopefully be able to bring Andrea back after the course, and hopefully whoever wins a session with her, or whatever 2 people win a session, can come back and share how it's helped them, because I know it will. And I also just want to, acknowledge the Gym Nation who's in here and the Flawless members. So if I didn't acknowledge you yet, hey, Patricia, I don't think Elishiva says at Andrea, welcome to Gym Nation. Thank you for your time. Yeah, she's amazing. Dante's running late. Hey, good to see you. Let me just see. If you didn't hit that like button, please hit it. Cynthia says hi, Andrea, and hello all. Cynthia just got a job and a part-time job, so congratulations on that. Yes, we discussed about the situation in DC. Let me see. Hey, Shell, yes, good to see you. I know I'm running late for listen, whoever's in there, hopefully y'all are chit-chatting, but I'll be in the membership soon. I believe the hand's trying to everything. I can't do this anymore. Okay. I don't see. Let me see. Let me just make sure. I saw a color, so give me a second. Oh, there it is. Y'all are chatting up amongst yourself. Thank you, Christine. Thank you for the chat or super chat or super sticky, whatever it's called. Sending love. Thank you, LJ. Cynthia said high heels. What were we talking about that was high heels? I missed it. Sorry about that. Hey, ZS. Good to see you made it towards the end. Hopefully you could catch the replay. Speaking of replays, yesterday, the live that I did was United We Stand, divided we're done. Like at the end of the day, and I didn't just mean Black people, like we definitely have to, with our allies. I did a video as part of the movement. Some of the nicest people that I've met while traveling abroad or living abroad for short stints have been white people. Like I'm not in this saying it's just us, because it can't just be us. For sheer numbers sake, it can't just be us. But finding those people that you can tap into. I've had great white male mentors in my career. Like at the end of the day, as much as I come on here talking about we need to stay ready so we don't have to get ready, we also need to find out who those allies are. We need to tap into those, ask for help from them when we need it. All of that, because listen, they're the creators of some of these games. And so if you want to know how to play chess, go to, what are they called? Not the master chess players.
The Grandmaster.
Grandmaster, yes, thank you. Don't forget to join the community. We go live. Our first class is on February 8th. There'll probably be an introductory class that I'll lead the week of the 8th just to set the tone and go over everything. But let me see. Yes, if you haven't joined the floor. Oh, El Shiva. Thank you, El Shiva. That was sweet. I appreciate your super chat or super sticky. Yeah, I don't see any questions. Hold on. On target, Andrea. Okay, stop. On target, Andrea. So I don't know what that means, but speak it, Kim and Andrea. Okay, with the heart. You're welcome, hun. El Shiva says, I appreciate you both sharing these gems. I'm on the LinkedIn platform. We'll connect with Andrea. And lastly, I'm willing to move out of my comfort zone. Listen, I'm just putting it out there. Andrea's putting it out there that we can't be lame ducks. We can't be sitting here because things are going to happen. And the people that started yesterday are better than the ones that start today. But the people that start today will be far better than the ones that start tomorrow. So that's the message that I want to leave with y'all. I mean, listen, the writing's on the wall. DEI has been code for Black. Woke is also code for Black. Well, they've definitely made those words, they've demonized all of that. Empress Wanderlust says Black people have structures in place for dealing with challenges because we're used to this. The other groups, not so much. We're resilient, and they can't understand that. They'll burn down Tesla and we'll still find ways to thrive. Listen, we have too many examples, and that's why they want to erase. That's why they're getting rid of the Tuskegee Airmen story. How dare these, what word they was probably saying, come in and show up our, troops, and how are they getting this limelight? They want to completely erase that history. And they're, right now kind of winning when it comes to the Air Force. So like I said the other day, if you have stories, if you can write books, if you can document history, now is the time to do that, and especially passing it on to your family, but you can also make a living out of it as well.
Right. And if I can share while you're reading, like I said, teach, if they do away with the Department of Education, I promise you nobody in my lineage will be ignorant.
Right.
Right? They're still going to learn to read and write, because I will make sure that they are taught. We will, during the pandemic, my niece and nephew, they brought some families together and they were in their basement. They had somebody come in and teach the kids in their basement. I mean, we just have to get creative.
Exactly. And I know that's happening in Florida. They have like Saturday schools because they took out what are they calling it? Critical whatever. They took out history, Black history. And these brilliant Black scholars and educators decided to create Saturday school for Black students, where on Saturdays they, in a in what I would deem a more authentic and comfortable setting, and probably getting the whole truth and nothing but the truth. So yes, we do. We survived. Black people didn't vote for this. We're the number one group known for being for other groups. The other groups not so much. Yeah, but we're past that part. Like, we got to deal with what is, and I appreciate that comment. But listen, this is united we stand, divided we're done. Like, at the end of the day. And so we have to. That's why I said, what is next? Like, we may be done. I mean, DEI may be done as we know it. Like, there will be changes to what it's called. There will be some companies that bow out. Some people will lose their jobs. But as a community, we should just be getting started. This is like the Renaissance, right? This could be like our Renaissance in learning exactly other ways that we can come together in community and profit. Now, everyone ain't coming. I know that to be true, but I hope people who heed this warning and share this, there will be at least some people who take heed. Love this live. Thank you, Amber D. Great information as always. Thanks, Kim and Andrea. You're welcome. Hey, Juanita. I didn't even know what DEI was until recently. I've only worked for private companies. Yeah. A lot of people don't know what DEI is. A lot of us didn't know what DEI was. They thought either it was just affirmative action, basically giving, giving jobs to Black people, basically.
Right.
And that was it.
Right. That's exactly right.
Sat us down and taught us Black history. He knew. Yeah, I grew up in a family. God bless my parents. Like, we used to have Black Solidarity Day, which was every Monday before Election Day. Now, in addition to Black Solidarity Day, where we had to stay home and learn history, like read books, it was dedicated. You could not spend money. And it was a movement in New York. And people, the businesses felt that. They knew that, especially like in Harlem and very urban places, the white businesses felt that, because we stayed home, we gathered in community, we read. And so when I went to Howard University, I ended up meeting the children of some of these brilliant people, these brilliant activists that I used to read about. And so we shot Black. We did all the things to keep us unified, that has since, they have since learned to rip away and tear apart. Yes, homeschool our Black children 100%. Hey, Juanita, good to see you. And I think that was it. And so for everyone who joined from the Flawless Nation, I'll be in, a few minutes after this is over, but y'all go ahead, talk amongst yourselves. Y'all start talking about whatever hot topics it is that you want to talk about. But I do want to first say, if there's anyone in this audience that has an expertise, right, that is part of the Flawless Nation, I should say, and wants to teach, this is what this channel is here for. I am blessed to know some really dynamic people that I have been able to bring to the stage, Andrea being one of them. There's more in the pipeline, but we need to absorb this information and be about that action. This is not for pure entertainment. This is for somebody to walk away from and say, you know what? My resume is a little sloppy toppy, or that wasn't the right phrase, but my resume is a little sloppy. My LinkedIn profile could need some help. I am horrible at interviewing. I need to get ready because I think my job may be laying some people off. You have someone who cares about this community, who understands this community, but also is overqualified to, get you up to speed in those areas. And so I invite you to, if you can't join the course, reach out to Andrea on LinkedIn. Do you answer your DMs on social media or not?
I do.
Okay.
As long as it's not, from one of
Crazy.
those.
Yeah. I don't answer my DMs, so that's why I had to stop and ask you. So you could reach out to Andrea for, to get on her calendar, set up some time. These are consultations now, so Please be respectful of our guests. And yeah, so any last words, Andrea? I just wanted to make sure I covered all of that. If you haven't liked this video, go ahead, hit that like button, please. It will help even later get this information out to people and share it with somebody. Again, we need all the resources. I'm so tired of seeing us talk about pop culture and what this reality show or Nene Leaks or the Real Housewives is now coming back. Stop focusing on those things and focus on how to prepare and stay ready so you don't have to get ready. And that is going to be my last word. I'm going to turn it over to Andrea for hers. And want to first thank you. Here I go buffering again for all the amazing gems that you dropped. So, any last words for the family?
Yeah, this was fun. Thank you so much for having me. I just want to say DEI is evolving. It's not going away. It might be a different name, um, but and regardless DEI or no DEI, you are capable. You're a descendant of the strongest survivors of the Middle Passage. We will get through this, and we have to get through it together. It's got to be based on community.
Each one teach one. Listen, strength in numbers, united we stand. We know the blueprint, and so we just need to act on it. And with that, I will say good night to everyone. Andrea, thank you so much for joining. Everyone else, I will see you in the Flawless community in a few minutes. All right, take care, everybody. Good night.
Bye.